What's happening, Tilray traders and investors? It's Rod with Pow Group. Welcome back on The Pursuit of Wealth, your home for MJ stocks, crypto assets, news, and interviews. Also home of the best MJ community. Today is Tuesday. It's March 5th. Hope you're doing well. And in this video, we're going to be discussing Tilray Brands, getting a lot of questions from the community and retail investors where this stands, if I can take a look at the chart. So by popular request, we'll take a look at Tilray Brands. We'll bring up the chart here in just a moment. I'll give my thoughts and opinions on the lay of the land right now, why it's struggling, and potentially what we could be looking out for in terms of price action in terms of the days, weeks, months ahead. Obviously not financial advice as always, and this is for entertainment and informational purposes only. You should never ever buy or sell anything based on anything that I say, or rate for that matter. Also, before we get to it, make sure to smash the like. I would appreciate it very much. Love each and every one of you supporting me along the way. If you're new, you can subscribe, tick the bell, and then that way you'll be notified when I post new content. Also, if you haven't already, you can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter. The handle for that is @GroupPow. Going to be using that as my platform of choice going forward. And it's the best way for me to get real-time updates out to the community. So another reason why I think that the Canadian landscape right now, MJ in Canada, is struggling is because we continue to see bankruptcies, insolvencies, and just market woes here in Canada and growing pains. We know that the federal government is also to blame. It's not just these producers. It's not that it's only Canada. Canada there's just no money to be made in Canada. I don't subscribe to that. I subscribe to the fact that this is a new emerging, burgeoning industry that is still heavily regulated, right? There's still so many limitations with regards to, advertising. We can't even do traditional advertising. We can't even have 100 milligrams in an edible, right? Where there's a petition to increase it from 10 to 100 milligrams here in Canada, which I think will happen at some point soon. The feds have already said in Canada that it's time to step up and support the MJ industry, and it's now over 5 years. So usually, somewhere around that 5 to 10 year mark is where we should see drastic changes. And I think drastic changes are coming. And then in another 5 years, we should see some major changes as well, which are only going to help the industry. And there was some news that Bazam Group obtained creditor protection. The stock lost like 90% in one day. So the fact that, this continues on, and BZAM was very big at one point, right? Like they merged with the Green Organic Dutchman. We know that the Green Organic Dutchman sold their Valley Field facility for pennies on the dollar to Cannara Biotech. And the companies right now in Canada that survive, and not only survive, but thrive, will end up being global powerhouses, in my opinion. And they also have almost 6 years under their belt of operating under a legal framework. And when they expand to other markets around the world, which they have a huge head start on international as well, think of Germany and the rest of the EU, all of these LPs already have EU GMP certification, which means they can export to the rest of the EU, right? And then also something to note is, why are all these big alcohol, big tobacco companies investing in Canadian LPs if there's no value to be had here long term, right? Think of Altria and Kronos, think of Constellation Brands and Canopy, and think of British American Tobacco with Organigram, right? So we continue to see this happen. And in my opinion, eventually MSOs are going to become LPs and LPs will become MSOs. But the companies, like I said, in Canada that differentiate themselves, that have a decent moat and a competitive advantage and focus on an area of expertise in the sector that they're good at, eventually they're all going to complement each other. Like think of a High Tide and Tilray, for example, right? High Tide carries majority of Tilray products. I've never been more bullish on Tilray than I am at the moment. And a lot of people will say, how can you say that? Are you just a perma bull and you don't understand, the price? Like, do you know where the price is at the moment? We're almost at all-time lows. So when there's that disconnect there, right? When I say that I've never been more bullish, people are like, how could you be more bullish? The price has never been lower. But price is not indicative of a company's value, right? There's the sayings go, the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. So that means both to the upside and the downside. So things get, irrational exuberance to the upside. We see crazy, insane valuations to the upside that don't make they just don't compute. They don't make any logical sense, because that has to do with emotions and people buying things when things are going up. People feel good about that investment, right? When, Tilray hit $300, people probably thought we were going to $500 or $1,000, right? And now that it's down 99% from all-time highs, people think it's going to go bankrupt, or this is the end of Tilray. And I'll be the first to tell you that Tilray isn't going anywhere. I mean, obviously, there's no guarantees. The only guarantee in finance is there is no guarantees. But I'm close to 100% as possible that Tilray isn't going anywhere. Tilray is going to be here long term, and if I spoke to Pow Group private members yesterday. I said, if I could only own one MJ stock, like if that was, how it was, someone to put a gun to my head and said, you can only own one MJ stock, one MJ stock. Okay. I would pick Tilray Brands hands down. My second pick would be Cureleaf. Let me know in the comments section below what if you can only own one, what would be your, and I assume since this is a Tilray video, most people are going to say Tilray, but what would be your number two if that's the case? Because like I said, I am super bullish on Tilray long term. I think that it's going to be one of those global powerhouses that weathers the storm here in Canada, and they're going to come out that much stronger. And if we take a look at the chart here, when will the bleeding stop? So we'll discuss, I've already brought up this chart before and the daily bear flag that was on deck. So once we had the earnings reaction and that double top there at 254, so essentially it was 252 and then we hit 254, and then that was our pullback and double top after the earnings reaction. And then we had a very weak bounce here on the daily time frame. Bouncing just means we're breaking the high of the previous candle. And then we had a very weak bounce. Anything under the 0.32 is considered a daily bear flag and a weak bounce. So we failed to get above 211. We hit 212, basically a double top right there as well, with key resistance that we were watching. And then once we came down here and lost 184, which is actually a double bottom, that confirmed the daily bear flag. And you take your measured move from the high to the low, move it out to your 0.32 fib, and it was saying we're targeting 154. We also had a daily EMA 12 and 26 bear cross here, which means usually price follows to the downside. When the shorter term, the yellow is below the longer term, in this case the white, the 12 and 26 period, with the white being the 26. When the 12, the shorter term, was below and they crossed, that was bullish. Price reacted to the upside as a result. Now we saw the shorter term above the longer term. So this is just called confluence, right? We had a daily bear flag. Okay, we confirmed a daily downtrend. We confirmed the daily bear flag. We confirmed the daily EMA 12 and 26 bear cross, right? So these are all, that's three major indicators that we could see more downside, right? And the reason why we shouldn't be expecting higher prices, because there's multiple indicators, multiple patterns, multiple signals that are telling us to expect downside. Plus, we were more than likely heading towards daily oversold, similar to the S&P 500 and similar to the rest of the sector. I think it's been since October since we were really daily oversold. So we could be heading to daily oversold, and daily oversold may be a nice bottom indicator here. If you're wondering where the bottom is going to be, well, we have our daily bear flag there at 154. And if we did hit 154, or maybe 149, that would probably put us and print daily oversold conditions here on the relative strength index, right, on the RSI. So one thing to be, and then also we had a descending triangle here. So you can see here that we had a series of lower highs and a horizontal line of support, and generally these break down to the downside. It just shows buyers' exhaustion, and that bears are just basically winning the battle here, and each new high is lower than the previous one. And then you have that horizontal line of support, which once it breaks, you just take your measured move from that as well. So you go here and you grab your trend line tool, you go and you get the space, you get that move, the measurement from the high there to the neckline or the support line. You move it out there to the support line, and it's saying we were targeting about 162, and look what we hit, 163. So we could be nearing a bottom. We could potentially see, a test of all-time lows there at 150. So if we zoom out to the monthly time frame, we have key monthly support at 161, which we are basically double bottoming on right now. And then after that, it's the all-time low there at 150 USD on the NASDAQ. So at the moment, this could be a monster swing trade as well. If you wanted to enter, let's say you've got your Tilray, I have a long-term bag, no touch, right? No time, only time I log into that account is to buy. And then I also have Tilray in a shorter-term account. My longer term is the TFSA, tax-free savings account, because in 5-10 years from now, if Tilray's back at $20 or even $100 or something crazy like that, that's all tax-free. So I'm going to hold that one long-term. And then my RSP, my registered retirement savings plan, I'm just going to use that as short-term trading, right? And then if Tilray were to say hit $10 or $15, maybe I'll lock in some profit, right? So what you could do as well is you could do a similar, and again, I'm not telling you to buy, sell, or hold, or what to do or what not to do. I'm just giving you an idea that this could be a monster swing opportunity here playing off of 150 support. So essentially, if you entered here at the low of the day today, you're risking about 7-8%. You could even risk, 11 to 14%. Maybe you set your stop at 144 or 139, and then look to swing this thing back up to resistance. That could be over 100% gain. So risk, 10, 15% to make 80 to 100+%, right? So this is great risk to reward opportunity. But at the moment, we're just looking for this monthly higher low to form, and we're right near support. So generally you want to be buying when we're near support, and generally you want to be selling when we're near resistance, right? But everybody's case is going to be different, and it depends if you're talking about your long-term account, your short-term account, what's your average, right? So how much money are you investing? Are you investing 4 figures, 5 figures, 6 figures? What's your net worth, right? All of these things factor in, and that's why no two people's situation will ever be the same. And that's why you do a test called risk tolerance, and they basically quiz you and they get the lay of the land and where you're at, with your whole in your life, right? Because everybody's different. So, somebody who's 60 or 50 years old is going to have a drastically different game plan than somebody who's 20 or 30, right? So it's looking like we could be bottoming out here, but again, don't be surprised if we see a little bit more red and downside, which, like I said, we could be targeting about 154, which would be the daily bear flag target on our way to daily oversold. I do think that there's a good chance that we test the lows there at 150. But personally, I bought more today. I bought more in my RRSP. So this was my first contribution to my RRSP for 2024. I did one in the first 60 days. So I'll be able to offset my 2023 taxes and taxable income. Now I'm working on my RRSP contributions for 2024. So any contributions that I make to my RRSP for 2024, since I've already maxed out my TFSA, of the 7,000 contribution room we had this year, that's max. So I'm going to focus on my RRSP, whatever tax I have for 2024, especially with all my short-term rentals, those are highly taxable. So whatever my taxable income is, if I contribute, 10,000 to my RRSP, then you minus that off of your taxable income for the year, right? Or 20 grand, whatever it is you contribute. And then you get a pretty fat tax return as well if you don't owe more than, if you don't owe more than you received, right? But everybody's situation is going to be drastically different, right? And then you need to factor in, if you're selling, is it a taxable event, right? And then one thing I wanted to bring up here on the weekly time frame is that we did have a stochastic bear cross. And what have I always been saying is the stochastic is the clue. We usually cross bearish, or we head close to a bear cross. Then we lose the 10-week moving average. Then we see follow through on the MACD. So the MACD didn't really see follow through until the first week of February. The stochastic had already crossed bearish like mid-January. So that was a clue that we were going to see more downside. Then we lost the 10-week moving average. Then we had a MACD follow through bear cross. So the fact that that has already happened is a good sign. It's looking like we're nearing a bottom. And if we bring up the weekly time frame here, you can see here the 50 weekly continues to be a brick wall of resistance. So if we can get a weekly candle close, preferably 2 or 3 candles, minimum 2, over 209 there, that 50 weekly moving average rather, then we're likely heading back up to our 100 in a very short hurry, in my opinion. And then we would be looking toward the 200 there at $7. But we'll deal with the 100 weekly first and the 50, and then we'll target the 200, which a lot of names in the MJ space are doing. And then on the daily time frame, we're very close to seeing a golden cross again with the 50-day below the 200-day moving average. So this is looking really, really good. Usually when we get extended to the downside or extended to the upside of these moving averages, we fluctuate, we gravitate back toward them, right? Same thing here. Came back, tried to confirm it as support, confirmed it as resistance, back down we go, right? Here we go, get above it, confirm it as support, try to get to a higher high, and then continue to fall back below it. So in my opinion, because this was the first golden cross in multiple years, that's usually where we get a big fake out monthly high or low, and then momentum shift on the longer term monthly time frame. Now we're gearing up for another golden cross. I wouldn't be surprised, like I said, if between now and April, the end of April, we get a DEA response and decision. They're going to come back, in my opinion, with Schedule 3 recommendation. I think that will be the most likely scenario. And I think the most likely timeframes between now and the end of April, maybe it's a month or two after that, but I think that is realistic because there's going to be a 60-day comment period. And then, who knows what other tomfoolery they're going to pull after that, and opposition they're going to get, blah, blah, blah. And then, they want to get it done before the elections, right? So that they can start to focus on the elections, right, and campaigning. So presidential elections going to be huge as well. And there was some articles out that, basically Biden could use MJ. And in a recent Kamala Harris video, vice president, she said that we changed federal MJ policy, right? So they're kind of dropping that. They're kind of foreshadowing that. They're kind of dropping those hints. And realistically, it has been the best administration when it comes to MJ, right? They got more done than any other administration. Okay, yes, there's been some false promises and they've been very slow, but if they reschedule MJ, that's going to be arguably the biggest thing for the industry to date, right? And arguably bigger than Canadian federal legalization, right? This is the US we're talking about here. So again, I bought today. I will buy again in my RRSP if we get down to around that 150 or maybe a flush thereof. But I can't pass this up. Like I said, I sleep well at night. I do not, I never ever think in my head, will Tilray go bankrupt? Like I've seen enough. I've done enough research. I'm very confident Tilray will be a top 3 global player. And if you continue to give me these rock bottom prices, I'll just continue to accumulate and take advantage of these once in a lifetime opportunities. And like I said, it's only ever going to happen once. And if I can only ever own one MJ stock, it'd be Tilray, like hands down, no questions asked. So hopefully this video was a little bit more, I don't know what you would call it. If you're looking for some sort of reassurance or, just a lot of people questioning their investment thesis or their picks and whatnot when the U.S. is, seeing the U.S. producers are holding up a lot better. But in my opinion, once we get that DEA headline, that's going to be when the floodgates open up. That's when everybody's going to go to the NASDAQ. They're not going to be able to buy. I was listening to the MSOS fund guy, I forget his name, Dan something. He said that, there's a lot of brokers now that won't even allow you to trade MSOS, right? So even though it's listed on a U.S. major exchanges, they just basically like put it in a MJ bucket and don't allow it, right? So, and I know tons of people that are in Europe as well that can't buy because they can only buy, like, even though MSOS is listed on the U.S. major exchange, they still can't buy it. They can only buy your Tilrays, your SNDLs, your High Tides, and your Canopies, right? Your Auroras. So when the DEA headline comes out, which I think could happen between now and the end of April, these LPs are going to absolutely skyrocket. And it's not because they're going to benefit from rescheduling, they're going to benefit from the hype. And then we should see a spring release with regards to the MJ Act here in Canada. All these bankruptcies like Bizam and all, Ogen, all these other ones that are going bankrupt or insolvent, creditor protection, bankruptcy filings. This is only going to entice and encourage the Canadian government to really start to support the industry, right? So this is a good thing, in my opinion, that we're seeing this consolidation. Might not even be the last. We could continue to see more of it, and that pretty much explains why Canadian MJ has been weaker, right? Why would people want to put their dollars into Canadian MJ when companies are just, dropping like flies, when we could put it into the US? That if 280 goes away, 280E goes away and these companies are already profitable like Green Thumb, just imagine, right? But again, they don't even have the whole US figured out right now. They're going to still have to expand across the US, and they haven't operated at a legal framework like the LPs have for over 5 years, going on 6 years. And they got a huge international start as well. And eventually LPs will become MSOs and MSOs will become LPs, right? There was talks that Curaleaf might buy Kronos, Canopy and Acreage once federally permissible. Tilray has convertible debt in MedMen. So the writing's on the wall, folks, and we're going to see these mega mergers and blue chip phases where all these companies start to become both, right? So I'm excited. I'm here for it. Like I said, never been more excited in Tilray, never been more confident in my position, and I will continue to add to this position, and I'll be sure to let everybody know when I do. Going to end it there, though. It's Rod with Pow Group. Thanks again for joining us in the pursuit of wealth. Let me know where you think the Tilray bottom is going to be at, and are you sleeping well at night? I always love hearing from you. We'll continue the conversation in the comment section below, and we'll see you on the next video.